Hello. Welcome to another video on our channel. Here we share stories from people who have had near-death experiences and other spiritual encounters. Today we will hear the story of Aiden Anderson. He recounts that he died and witnessed a great transformation on the planet between 2023 and 2025. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now. Leave a comment with your name and city. Now, let's hear Aiden's story. Since childhood, I always felt that I didn't belong where I lived. I grew up in Brooksville, a small town in the United States, where the quiet streets hid many dark secrets. My house was in a middle-class neighborhood, with houses that seemed perfect on the outside, but many harbored silent dramas like mine. My father, John Anderson, was a tall and intimidating man. His eyes always seemed full of anger, and his presence made everyone around him tense. I remember his thick, harsh voice, often rising in shouts that echoed through the house. As far back as I can remember, he was violent. He often assaulted my mother, Mary, a small and fragile woman with sad eyes that told stories of suffering. My older sister, Jessica, always tried to protect us, but it was difficult to stand up to a man like my father. One night, when I was about 8 years old, I heard screams coming from the living room. I went down the stairs slowly, trying not to make any noise. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw my father yelling at my mother. He had a beer bottle in his hand and his voice was filled with hatred. "You're worthless, Mary. You never were," he shouted, throwing the bottle against the wall, scattering pieces of glass everywhere. Jessica ran to stand between them with her hands outstretched. "Dad, please, Dad, don't do this." I was frozen with fear, my feet seeming glued to the floor. I wanted to run and help my sister, but I couldn't move. I just watched as my father pushed Jessica aside and raised his hand to hit my mother. This was the reality of my day-to-day life. Growing up in such an environment left deep marks on me, and the violence I witnessed shaped the emotional scars I carry to this day. When my parents divorced, I was 12 years old. It was a temporary relief. But soon my life entered a new cycle of difficulties. After the divorce, my mother, depressed, struggled to support me and my sister who was in college. Mary worked as a clerk at a local pharmacy, a job that paid little and required long hours. She would come home exhausted, often with swollen eyes from crying, but she tried to maintain an appearance of normalcy for me. One afternoon, I found my mother sitting in the kitchen, staring at a family photo on the table. The photo showed a happy moment in our lives, long before everything fell apart. "Why did this happen to us, Aidan?" she murmured, not taking her eyes off the photo. I didn't know what to say. I just sat beside her and held her hand. "We'll be okay, Mom. Somehow we'll be okay." Feeling lost and alone, I began to get involved with bad company. At 15, I ran away from home. The streets of Brooksville, which seemed safe during the day, turned into a dangerous place at night. I found refuge in a group of young people who, like me, had nowhere to go. Each of us had a story of suffering, and together we formed a kind of dysfunctional family. I remember the first night I spent on the streets. The air was cold and biting, and I huddled in an alley, trying to find some warmth. It was there that I met Sam, a boy just a few years older than me, who had also run away from home. "Hey, kid. What are you doing here alone?" Sam asked with a tone of voice that mixed curiosity and concern. "I have nowhere to go," I replied, trying not to let my voice tremble. Sam smiled and sat down next to me. "You'll get used to it. We all do, but it's not easy." Over time, Sam became my closest friend on the streets. He taught me how to survive, avoid dangers, and find safe places to sleep. But not even Sam could protect me from all threats. One night, while we were wandering the streets, we were approached by a group of men. They surrounded us, and one of them grabbed my arm. "You two are coming with us," he growled, squeezing my arm tightly. Sam tried to fight, but it was useless. We were taken to an abandoned building, where we were held captive for days. They threatened us, beat us, and I thought we would never get out alive. It was an experience that left deep scars and intensified my post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. When we finally managed to escape, I knew that something inside me had changed forever. I preferred to be alone, trusting only a few friends. Life on the streets hardened me, but it also made me more vulnerable in ways I couldn't fully understand at the time. In 1989, after months of headaches and a feeling of emotional despair, I attempted suicide. The pain was constant, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. On that fateful night, I was alone in my room. The lights off, and the only illumination came from the moon shining through the window. I held a bottle of vodka in one hand and a bottle of pills in the other. Tears streamed down my face as I looked at the photo of my family. I felt completely lost, with no hope that things could get better. I can't live like this anymore, I murmured to myself, my voice choked with sadness. There's no way out. No one cares. I opened the bottle of pills and began swallowing them one by one, taking sips of vodka to help them go down. With each pill, I felt more numb, more distant from the pain that tormented me daily. My heart was beating irregularly, and a sense of darkness began to envelop me. After the suicide attempt, I felt a strong pounding in my chest, as if my heart was desperately fighting to keep beating. The sensation was so intense that it momentarily pulled me out of the numbness. Shortly after, everything went dark. It wasn't just the darkness of closing my eyes, but a complete absence of light, sound, and sensation. For a moment, I thought I'd finally managed to end my pain. But then something unexpected happened. I began to feel a lightness, as if my body was floating. The darkness began to dissipate, and I realized I was outside my body. I looked down and saw myself lying on the bed, motionless, with the vodka bottle still in my hand. The sight was surreal, and brought me a mix of curiosity and fear. I'm dead, I thought, trying to process what was happening. The sensation of being outside my body was both liberating and terrifying. I floated around the room, passing through the ceiling, and kept rising higher and higher. I could see my house getting smaller, the city lights twinkling in the distance. I felt immense joy and freedom, something I had never experienced before. The colors around me were vibrant, the stars seemed brighter, and the texture of the space around me was different, richer and more complex. As I ascended, I began to notice a change in the environment. The lightness and joy gave way to a thick, almost palpable darkness. I felt like I was being pulled into a whirlpool of darkness. Fear began to grow inside me, replacing the initial euphoria. I felt the presence of beings around me, although I couldn't see them clearly. They were there, watching, waiting. Suddenly, a gigantic figure, without a human form, appeared before me. It was an intimidating and threatening presence, and its voice echoed in my mind without the need for words. "You don't belong here. You are not worthy," the entity communicated in a threatening manner. Its voice resonating in my mind, feeling vulnerable and then terrified. I did the only thing that came to mind. I called out for Jesus. "Jesus, help me! Please, save me!" Instantly, a bright light appeared, driving away the darkness and the hostile beings. The light was so intense that I had to cover my eyes. When the light began to fade, I saw a radiant figure approaching. It was Jesus. His face was serene and full of compassion. He embraced me, and all the pain and fear I felt disappeared instantly. I felt a spiritual healing, as if a deep peace had been poured over me. "Do not be afraid, Eden," Jesus said, his voice gentle and comforting. "I am here to help you. You have a purpose to fulfill. But why me? I'm just me. I've never done anything important," I replied, feeling insignificant in the divine presence. Jesus smiled. "Everyone has a role to play. I will show you your life so you can understand better." Jesus held my hand, and together we began to review my life. It was like watching a movie, but with a clarity and depth I had never experienced before. I saw all my actions, good and bad, and the impact they had on others. Every moment of my life was laid bare before me, and I could feel the feelings and emotions of the people who had been affected by my actions. "You see, Eden, how your actions influenced others. Even the smallest acts can have great repercussions," Jesus explained. "You have enough goodness in your heart. Despite your weaknesses and mistakes, you are destined for heaven." I watched, amazed and regretful at the same time. I never realized how much my actions mattered, I said, tears streaming down my face. "I wish I had done more, been better." You still have time to make a difference." Jesus responded with an encouraging tone. "But there is something more I need to show you." Then, the vision changed. I saw the current world, but it was transforming before my eyes. Jesus showed me a series of events that would occur between 2023 and 2025. It was like watching a fast montage of scenes, but each one was full of impressive details. I saw the United States going through a deep political crisis, with leaders being deposed and old systems collapsing. Europe was facing its own challenges, with new forms of government emerging amid chaos. In Latin America, popular movements were gaining strength, toppling corrupt regimes and establishing new political orders. "These changes are necessary," Jesus explained. "Although they initially bring chaos, they will result in more just and equitable societies. People will need to go through this period of transformation to learn and grow." "That sounds scary," I confessed, worried about what I was seeing. "How will people cope with all this?" "They will not be alone," Jesus said with a look of serenity. "There are witnesses of God all over the world, and they will help guide and support those in need." The response to love and compassion will be crucial during these times. As Jesus showed me the future, I felt a mix of fascination and apprehension. Each vision was loaded with vivid details. I saw cities on fire, protests in the streets, world leaders in desperate meetings. There was a sense of urgency and change, but also of hope and renewal. Jesus made me understand that these transformations were not only political but also spiritual and cultural. "Look, Eden," Jesus said, pointing to a scene of a large protest in Washington. People are rising against injustice, demanding transparency and truth from their leaders. This is a necessary step for the evolution of society. I saw people of all ages and ethnicities marching together, holding signs with messages of peace and justice. I could feel the energy and determination in their faces, but I also saw repression, violence against protesters, the struggle for power. The scenes were intense and emotional, showing both the best and worst of humanity. "These transformations will occur in waves," Jesus continued. "The old order needs to be dismantled so that something new and better can emerge, but this process will be painful." Next, I saw Europe. There was turmoil in several capitals, with old governments falling and new leaders emerging. I saw young people leading movements for change, driven by a vision of a more inclusive and sustainable future. There were heated debates, confrontations, but also moments of unity and solidarity. In Europe, the search for a new identity and purpose will be intense, Jesus explained. They are trying to find a balance between their traditions and the need for innovation. Latin America was next. I saw a series of popular uprisings toppling corrupt regimes. People were taking control of their destinies, forming new governments based on social justice and equity. There was a strong sense of community and mutual support. I saw communities working together to rebuild and revitalize their societies. In Latin America, the spirit of community and solidarity will be key to overcoming challenges, said Jesus. They will show the world the power of unity and love for one's neighbor. As I watched these visions, I was overcome with a deep sense of responsibility. I felt that I had a role to play, even if small, in this great scheme of transformation. Jesus looked at me with an encouraging smile. "Ethan, everyone has a role to play," he said softly. "You too can make a difference. Your journey is not over yet." After the revelation of the future, Jesus led me to a review of my own life. It was like watching a movie, but with an emotional depth I had never experienced before. Every significant moment of my life was laid bare before me, and I could feel the feelings and emotions of the people who had been affected by my actions. "Let's start from the beginning," Jesus said, his voice gentle and comforting. The first scene was from my childhood, a happy moment before everything fell apart. I was playing in the backyard with my sister, Jessica. It was a sunny day, and our laughter echoed through the air. I could feel the innocence and joy of that moment. "These moments of joy are precious," Jesus commented. "They are what sustain the soul in times of difficulty." Then the scene changed to a night of violence in my house. My father was yelling at my mother, and I was hiding behind the door in fear. I could feel the pain and terror of that moment, as if it were happening again. These experiences shaped who you are, but they do not define your worth, Jesus said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. I also saw my moments of rebellion and despair in adolescence. The cold nights on the streets of Brooksville, the bad company I chose, every decision, every mistake was laid bare with painful clarity. You see, Eitan, how your actions influenced others. Even the smallest acts can have great repercussions, Jesus explained. You have enough goodness in your heart. Despite your weaknesses and mistakes, you are destined for heaven. I watched, amazed and regretful at the same time. I never realized how much my actions mattered, I said, tears streaming down my face. I wish I had done more, been better. You still have time to make a difference, Jesus responded with an encouraging tone. But there is something more I need to show you. Jesus showed me moments when, unknowingly, I had made a difference in the lives of others. Small acts of kindness that I didn't even remember, but that had a great impact. I remembered one particular day. I was walking through the streets of Brooksville when I saw an elderly woman trying to cross the street. She looked confused and vulnerable. Without thinking, I went to her and helped her cross. It wasn't a big act, but to her, it meant the world. "Thank you, young man," she said, holding my hand tightly. "You were an angel." At the time, I had just smiled and gone on my way, not realizing the depth of her words. But now, seeing the scene through Jesus' eyes, I could understand the impact of that simple gesture. All these small acts of kindness add up, Jesus explained. They create ripples that spread far beyond what you can see. The review continued, showing moments when I failed and hurt those I loved. I saw the pain in my mother's eyes, the sadness in Jessica when she couldn't reach me. These scenes were painful, but necessary. "You are not being judged, Eitan," Jesus said gently. "This is so you can learn and grow." I was informed that I could not take back certain knowledge, as it would interfere with my spiritual growth. Although reluctant, I understood the necessity of this limitation. The review of life continued, showing moments of both failure and redemption. I saw the pain I caused others, but also the moments when, unknowingly, I brought joy and relief. Each scene was a lesson, an opportunity to reflect on my actions and their impacts. One of the most painful scenes was a moment with my sister, Jessica. She was home for Christmas, during one of her breaks from college. I remember how excited she was to spend some time with me. But I was lost in my own darkness. "Eitan, why don't you come with me to the mall? We can buy presents together," she suggested with a hopeful smile. "I'm not in the mood for it, Jess. Go alone," I replied coldly, not looking at her. I saw the disappointment in her eyes, a glimmer of sadness that I hadn't noticed at the time. She tried to hide it, but the pain was clear. At that moment, I was so wrapped up in my own misery that I didn't realize how my words hurt her. "I just wanted to spend some time with you," she murmured, leaving the room. Jesus showed me the extent of that pain, how Jessica felt rejected and powerless to help her brother. It was a hard lesson to learn, but essential. You see, Eitan, how your words and actions can deeply affect those who love you. Even small interactions can leave lasting marks, Jesus explained, his voice full of compassion. The review also brought moments of hope and kindness. I saw a scene where, during one of my darkest moments, I offered help to an old friend, Sam, who was also struggling with his own demons. Sam had been one of the few friends I made on the streets. "Eitan, I'm in a deep hole. I don't know what to do," he confessed one night, his voice trembling with despair. "We'll get through this together, Sam. You're not alone," I replied, squeezing his shoulder firmly. Those simple, but sincere words had a profound impact on Sam. I saw how he began to fight against his own addictions, inspired by our brief moment of solidarity. It was a reminder that even in the darkness, the light of compassion can shine. Jesus continued to show me these moments, each one a lesson about the power of our actions and the importance of empathy. I felt a deep gratitude for this opportunity for learning and growth. You have enough goodness in your heart, Eitan. Despite your weaknesses and mistakes, you are destined for heaven, Jesus said with an encouraging smile. The response to love is crucial in every moment of life. The communication with Jesus was instant and fluid. He explained to me that there were witnesses of God all over the world, and that my suffering was part of a greater purpose. This revelation brought a new perspective on my life and my struggles. Understand that you are not alone, Aitan. There is a greater purpose in your suffering, and you are growing spiritually, Jesus said, his voice full of certainty. I was informed that I could not take back certain knowledge, as it would interfere with my spiritual growth. Although reluctant, I understood the necessity of this limitation. The knowledge I now possessed was enough to guide my next steps. After the review of life and the revelation of the future, it was time to return to my body. I felt a natural resistance, a desire to remain in the comforting presence of Jesus and the peace I had found. Returning to my body meant facing the pain and challenges of earthly life again. I don't want to go back, I confessed, feeling a tightness in my heart. Here I am at peace. There is only pain there. Jesus looked at me with a look of deep compassion. I understand, Aitan, but you still have work to complete. Your journey on earth is not over yet, but what can I do? I'm just a broken and lost person, I replied, feeling small in the face of the immensity of the purpose he suggested. Every soul has a unique and important role, Jesus explained. You are not alone. God and I will be with you, supporting you every step of the way. You have grown spiritually, and your work on earth is part of that growth. I then saw a vision of my future, a series of scenes showing my growth and the people I would help. It was a glimpse of hope, a reminder that my suffering was not in vain. You will be a beacon of light for those in darkness, Jesus said. Remember that love and compassion are the most powerful forces that exist. With this promise, I felt a renewal of purpose. Although reluctant, I began to accept the need to return. Jesus assured me that I would never be alone, and that, upon completing my mission, my eternity would be filled with love and peace. I promise to do my best, I said, with a lump in my throat. I will try to fulfill what you asked of me. Jesus smiled and enveloped me in one last embrace, conveying a sense of unconditional love that warmed my heart. We believe in you, Aitan. Go and make a difference. I felt a sensation of being pulled, as if I were being drawn back into my body. The light around me began to fade, and the darkness gave way to consciousness. I opened my eyes and found myself lying on the bed, with the vodka bottle beside me and the empty pill bottle. In the years following my near-death experience, I dedicated my life to helping others. The promise I made to Jesus, and the constant presence of God in my life, gave me the strength to face my own demons, while supporting those who were struggling. One of the most significant ways to fulfill this promise was through my volunteer work in shelters and rehabilitation centers. I particularly remember a cold winter night in Bruxville when I was at the local shelter, serving hot soup to the residents. The shelter was a humble place, with worn walls and simple furniture. But there was a feeling of community and hope among those seeking refuge there. While serving the soup, I noticed a young man sitting alone in a corner. He looked lost, his eyes empty and his expression tired. I decided to approach and start a conversation. "Hi, my name is Aitan. Can I sit with you?" I asked, trying to break the ice. He looked at me, initially hesitant, but nodded. "Sure, my name is Alex." We sat and started talking. Alex told me about his struggle with drug addiction and how it had led him to the streets. Every word he said resonated deeply with me, reminding me of my own battles and the promises I made. "You know, Alex," I began, "I've been in a very dark place too. I've been through things I thought I would never overcome. But I learned that there is always hope, even in the darkest moments." Alex looked at me, his eyes showing a glimmer of interest. "How did you manage to get out of it?" I told him my story, including my near-death experience and the encounter with Jesus. I shared how this experience transformed my life and gave me a new purpose. "That's what gave me the strength to continue," I explained. "And I believe if you can find that strength too, you're not alone." This conversation was the beginning of a friendship and a mentoring process. Alex started attending the shelter regularly and the group sessions I led. Gradually, I saw change in him. He began to believe he could change his life, to have hope for a better future. One afternoon, during one of these group sessions, Alex shared a significant moment. "I always thought my life was destined for failure," he said, his voice choked with emotion. But meeting Ethan and hearing his story made me realize that I too can have a second chance. Those words touched me deeply. Knowing that my experience was helping others find hope and purpose gave new meaning to my own journey. Besides the volunteer work, I started giving talks in schools and communities, sharing my story and the lessons I learned. In one of these talks, I met a young woman named Sarah. She was going through a difficult family situation, very similar to mine. "I feel so alone," she confessed after the talk. "It's like no one understands me." "I understand how you feel," I replied, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I've been through something very similar, but I want you to know that there is a way out. You are stronger than you think." Sarah started attending the group sessions, and gradually, her confidence began to grow. She found a supportive community and began to believe she could overcome her difficulties. Over these years, my mother, Mary, also became a great source of support. Although our relationship had been tense in the past, time and spiritual healing brought us closer. "I'm so proud of you, Ethan," she said one night, as we drank tea in the kitchen. "You've transformed your life and are helping so many others. Your father would be surprised at the man you've become." Those words meant a lot to me. Knowing that my mother saw and appreciated my transformation gave me even more strength to continue. The relationship with my sister Jessica also strengthened. She has always been a rock in my life, even in moments when I didn't realize it. We reconnected and began to support each other mutually. "I'm glad you found your purpose, Aiden," Jessica said during a visit. "I always knew you had something special. I always knew you had something special. And now, you're really making a difference." These renewed relationships and the work I was doing gave new meaning to my life. I felt that I was finally fulfilling the purpose Jesus had revealed to me. But the path was not always easy. In 2004, I faced another period of physical pain and loneliness. The constant pain led me again to the brink of despair. I remember one specific night where I was lying in bed, feeling like I couldn't go on. "Why won't this pain stop?" I murmured to myself, tears streaming down my face. "I can't take it anymore." It was then that I felt the divine presence again. It was as if a gentle and comforting light was surrounding me. A powerful voice, full of love, spoke to me. "Ethan, you are not alone. Your journey is not over yet. You have a purpose to fulfill." This presence brought me a peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I remembered the promises made to Jesus and the mission I was given. I set aside thoughts of giving up and decided to keep fighting. "I will continue," I promised out loud, feeling a new wave of determination. "I will fulfill my mission." This experience reinforced my belief that even in the darkest moments we are not alone. God was with me, guiding and supporting me. Today I share this story so that everyone knows that, despite the difficulties and suffering, there is a greater purpose in our lives. The transformations Jesus showed me have already begun, and it is essential that we keep faith and hope. Knowing that we are not alone and that love will prevail in the end gives us the strength to continue. So, what did you think of this incredible story? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Activate the notification bell to be notified of each new video. Let's bring hope to more people that there is life beyond what the eyes can see.